Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. Today we continue our look at Disneyland souvenirs. Kind of off topic for a monster horror series, but if you saw our last episode on Randotti skulls, then you know that Disneyland souvenirs could be surprisingly macabre. So in our last episode, we looked at the beautiful plaster skulls made by Randotti for the Disney theme parks. And if you haven't seen that episode, please do. Please watch that episode, because I'm not going to repeat a lot of the information about the parks themselves in this episode. I'm going to assume that you saw that one. In this episode, this is kind of like part 2, we're going to look at the rubber jigglers that were sold in the souvenir shops at Disneyland. And they still, it's my understanding, they still sell contemporary rubber jigglers, but they're not like the old ones. And if you collect jigglers, you know really no jigglers today are like the old ones. The jigglers today, they're made in China. They're made of a more rigid PVC. They're not soft and oily like the old made in Hong Kong jigglers from the 60s and 70s and into the 80s. So jigglers aren't very jiggly anymore, unfortunately. But at Disneyland, they were still selling very, very jiggly, soft, oily, smelly rubber jigglers all the way through the 1990s, because I bought them at the end of the 90s. Maybe even early 2000s, they still sold them. But it's my understanding that they don't sell those kinds of jigglers anymore, and we actually have some contemporary ones that we're going to look at as well. Now, okay, so let's talk about. We'll show you a jiggler. Not this one. Okay, here we go. This is a classic Disneyland jiggler. This is a big rubber spider. It looks almost like an octopus, doesn't it? And I don't know how I'm going to. Well, I was going to say, I don't know how I'm going to get these on camera the way they're so big and weird, but, you know, it looks pretty good from what I can see here. I think you definitely get the idea. Yeah, there it is. So you can look how jiggly that is. So this is the type of big, heavy rubber jiggler that was sold at Disneyland. Now, most of the things here I'm going to show you I actually bought at Disneyland, either in person or over the phone. I'll get into that. This one I didn't. And I'm going to talk about a company called Vic's Novelty. So this has a copyright. Yes, this is Vic's. 1974. 1974 Vic's Novelty. It's right there. We'll put him up for the moment. I have another one of these that I personally bought at Disneyland. This one I bought on eBay. Let's talk about Vic's Novelty. I have some notes here. Okay, Vic's Novelty was a company based in Oxnard, California, and they specialized in rubber jigglers, like the spider. There was an article in the 1999 LA Times, which is really the only source of information about Vic's Novelty. Now, I know as a toy collector, there are a lot of rubber toys that are made by Vic's. Throughout the 1970s, there were many rubber figural rubber toys. There's a Hulk. There are monsters. There are all kinds of things that are not related to Disneyland that were made by Vic's Novelty, and you'll see their name come up on a lot of rubber toy products. But there's almost no information about them, except this one article in the LA Times where they're profiling the company. It was a Halloween-themed article talking about them getting ready for the Halloween season. And according to this article, Vic's was founded in 1948 by Vic Provenzano. Vic Provenzano in North Hollywood. For some reason, Vic found a lizard. This is a lizard like slithered across his path. That sounds like it's probably made up, that part of the story. But he took an actual lizard, a real lizard, and made a mold of this lizard. And it was with that he started the company, Vic's Novelty, in his garage. So he made a rubber lizard molded off a real lizard. Now, I don't know if it slithered over his shoe, or that's kind of like the company legend. How or why he got hold of this actual lizard. Maybe he found it dead in his yard. I don't know. I'd like to think he didn't take a perfectly fine, living, breathing lizard and just kill it to make a toy. But as we're going to see, that could be exactly what he did. But he made a mold of a real lizard and made a toy of that in his garage and started this company. And I don't know how if there was rubber in 1948, because you need metal injection molding to do this kind of rubber toy making. So I don't know what he did in 1948, and I don't know for sure that initial toy was made of rubber. It might have been, who knows, plaster or something, I don't know. But that's how he started the company. And it grew into this huge business that dominated vending machines. It dominated the vending machine market in the 1970s with soft plastic lizards and snakes. So this article suggesting throughout the 1970s that the vending machines where you put a quarter in and turn it and you get a little plastic capsule, pop it open, there's a rubber creature in there. Vic's dominated that market. And I loved the vending machines and loved every time I went to a store that had them. That was so exciting just to go to those. They were usually red metal with a glass front, and of course they had the display cards with all the rubber toys stapled to the display card. And it wasn't just rubber. They had plastic toys and joke items and novelties and all kinds of stuff. But I always wanted the rubber toys. And that was always exciting to get a toy from the vending machine. And apparently Vic's was the king of that. Now here's the important part in this article. Vic's made all the lizards and snakes sold to Disneyland, Disney World, and Euro Disney, as well as some Las Vegas resorts that sold rubber creatures for some reason. But Vic's made they had the exclusive contract. They made all of the rubber toys sold as souvenirs at the Disney theme parks. So there's the verification right there. That's from the Los Angeles Times. And I don't know what happened to Vic's, because I tried looking them up, like what are they doing now? And they seem to be defunct, I guess. The address where their headquarters used to be in Oxnard is now some kind of automotive center. I don't know if it's like a repair shop or what. I don't remember exactly, but it's something automotive related. Like I think it's a repair shop, but it's not Vic's Novelty, that's for sure. I mean, that's too bad. I don't know how are they doing so fantastic 20 years ago, and then now they're gone. I mean, people still buy rubber novelties, although not the same. Like I was just saying, if they specialized in this oily rubber, things like the spider, and that maybe for, who knows, environmental reasons, or some kind of regulations changed and you couldn't make those kinds of toys anymore. Maybe that did them in. If they were all set up to make specifically that, and something changed and they had to make the stiff PVC toys and they weren't set up for that. I don't know. But couldn't be because rubber spiders went out of fashion, because people still buy that stuff. Okay. So here is... Oh, that's the spider we just saw. Here is a reptile. And this is another Vic's toy. Very jiggly, very, very heavy. This is a little alligator. And this is another example of the kind of jiggler that they sold at the Disneyland souvenir stands. And I say plural, but it might have been just one stand, and I'll get to that. I don't know that they were all through the park. They might have just been at one stand. But they were definitely sold at Disneyland. And, we'll talk about that. Point is, look at this beautiful green rubber jiggly alligator. Look at those weird legs, the way they're made. Now, unfortunately, I think this is molded off of a real lizard. Just there's little details about it that are kind of weird. And it's almost like someone took an actual lizard that was dead and kind of desiccated and, I don't know, stuffed it a little or stuck wires in it or maybe sculpted some additional parts to make it work. But I think this might have been molded off a real animal, which is sad. But it's just some of the folds, especially on the underside, they're kind of odd that you wouldn't sculpt that. Some of the way that it's just, there's a weirdness about it that has an almost taxidermy look, especially like right in there. It just has an odd look, almost like a dead thing, like a dead animal. And it's heavy, it's oily, it's jiggly. And the fact that it's in a bag like this instead of a Disneyland bag makes me wonder, I might have gotten this. I might have gotten this in person at the park. I'm not sure. Because if I were on vacation, I might not have brought the Disneyland bag. You would think I would. I might not have brought the Disneyland bag back with me. I might have put it in just a normal bag like this. So I'm not sure if this is an Office Depot bag. I'm not sure if I got this on eBay or got it in person. But I know everything we're going to see going forward I got at the park, either standing there in person or over the phone, which I'll explain. Or a friend got it for me. So let me talk about, I'll rehash my story about the souvenir stand. Okay. So I had never been to Disneyland until the late 1990s. And I was very surprised to go to their souvenir stands. And when I say souvenir stand, I'm not talking about like a little hot dog stand with a couple of shelves and a guy standing there. I mean, they're elaborate buildings. Some of them are open air, particularly the one I'm going to talk about. Others are more like an enclosed building. And then there's a magic shop that's very famous, the Main Street Magic Shop. but it was particularly the tiki-themed souvenir stand that's in the Jungle Cruise section of the park. And I've heard that was called the open air stand. And it was something where you would just, it wasn't like, there were not 4 complete walls. I think there might have been 2 walls and then 2 open areas where you could just walk in. And that's where I saw these barrels, like wine barrels. And now I know that those barrels are part of the visual theming of the Jungle Cruise attraction. There's barrels involved with that. And also, I think that stand has been replaced by, what's the name, Trader Sam's? I think that's what it's called, Trader Sam's. I hope that's the name. It's a character that originally was very racist, Trader Sam's. He was supposed to be an indigenous South American person, and he was portrayed as a headhunter and a cannibal. And now they've revised all that. But there's still, and he was part of the Jungle Book story. Not Jungle Book, Jungle Cruise, part of the Jungle Cruise story. And now there's a Trader Sam's. Is that the name, Trader Sam's? I got like a little warning bell ringing in my head, like that's not the name. I think that's the name. There's a Trader Sam's restaurant or a tiki bar that's become very popular. But that's not the souvenir stand. There's another souvenir stand that I think is branded as Trader Sam's. And I think that's what replaced this open air stand that I remember. I could be wrong. So I'm not an aficionado of the park, the Disneyland park. I don't know all the ins and outs of the park and the history of the park. There are people with obsessive knowledge about the Disneyland park and could tell you exactly what each souvenir stand was called and where it was and the history of how it changed. But I don't have that knowledge. I know late 90s, early 2000s, when I would go to Disneyland, the thing I perhaps looked forward to the most was going to this souvenir stand that I think was the open air stand. It was tiki themed, and they had these barrels, and in the barrels it had the Randotti skulls. Well, by then they were knockoffs, but it had the Randotti style skulls all for sale. And but it had these barrels full of these jigglers, these tall, deep barrels, just full of these rubber snakes and lizards and spiders and things. And they were oily and smelly and heavy, and they were like the jigglers I had grown up with. And I didn't think anyone was making jigglers like that anymore. As I said at the top, by then, those had long been replaced by the much more stiff, not very jiggly, not jiggly at all, the stiff PVC type rubber toys or the hollow rubber toys filled with pellets that were kind of stretchy. Those had replaced the proper jigglers from my youth. So I was very surprised to see these old-fashioned jigglers. And at the time I thought, were these like old stock from the 70s? Because as you saw, they had these old copyrights on them. And now I think after reading the LA Times article, no, just they were still making those old-fashioned style jigglers all the way into the 90s, through the decade, for Disneyland. That might have been the only place you could find that kind of a jiggler. I don't know, besides those Disney theme parks and for whatever reason the Las Vegas resorts. I'm not sure why they would be selling jigglers. I've never been to Las Vegas proper. I've been to the airport, that's about it. I've never been in the city of Las Vegas, so I don't know. My exposure to Las Vegas, my image of Las Vegas is based on media, movies and TV shows. So I don't know why there'd be jigglers in the resorts, but apparently there were. But anyway, so I was very impressed with seeing these bizarre jigglers in this environment. And I remember I did buy a couple that first time I saw them. But I later, back in Missouri, I called Disneyland. And I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I said, let's just give this a try. I called Disneyland. They said, I really like the jigglers, those rubber animals that you sell. And but I can't get over there to. I'm in Missouri. And there's only so many I can buy when I'm there and take on the plane. I'd really like to have as many of those as I could get. And whatever, what do they call them, Imagineers, the people who work at Disneyland, whoever I was talking to was so very polite. I remember it was a young woman, and she was very sweet. And she said, well, let me help you. And from wherever she was, I don't know where she was in the park, she walked to the souvenir stand for me on the phone. And she was standing there. So she says, okay, here I am. And she started describing the jigglers she was seeing and how much they were. And I said, okay, I'll have one of those. All right, and one of those. And she collected them for the ones I wanted. And she said, okay, we'll put a package together and we'll ship this to you. And they did. And I paid for it over the phone, but they shipped me a package of their jigglers from the stand. So that was very nice of them, of that young lady, whoever she was. She really went the extra mile for me. And I understand that's part of the, at least at that time, probably still part of the Disney company culture. They're very customer-oriented, very guest-oriented. I don't hear a lot of stories of rude employees or disinterested employees at Disneyland. They seem to be very, very into their jobs and into the culture of Disney and into doing everything they can for the guests, whether they're in the park or the hotel or whatever. And I certainly experienced that with the woman on the phone. Wish I could have had her name written down somewhere to give her credit. So I don't know, though, which of these in this bag came from that phone call or which I bought in person. But let's just see what we got here. So this is a Disney bag. And I haven't looked at these in 20 years. So we've been hibernating for 20 years. So I might have some surprises here. And I shouldn't. This is too sticky and oily for this for this tabletop. I need to keep it on there. Otherwise I'll have fuzz all over my jiggler. Okay, so this is a very sticky, oily, slimy snake. And sure enough, it's Vicks. Yeah. Made in the USA. All the Vicks stuff is made in the USA. Well, I shouldn't say all. I'm sure they made stuff in Hong Kong too, but one of the things they were known for was producing their stuff in-house in the USA. I don't want to say it was all made in the USA. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure they had stuff from Hong Kong too, but they did produce a number of things. Apparently in Oxnard at their headquarters, they must have had the facilities to make this stuff. So this is made in the USA. And where's the? I'm just looking for. Is there a date? There's a long snake. No, I don't want to waste any more time looking for that. I was looking for any information I could get. Boy, it's sticky. It's tacky. Woo. Okay, let's see if I can. How I can get him on camera. Whoa, look at this thing. Okay. Well, I'm looking at what I'm recording here, and it just does not do it justice. Holding this in your hand, it's so massive. It's so massive and so heavy, and so sticky and greasy and oily. You just can't get that effect looking at it on video. And believe me, they don't make, nobody makes jigglers like this anymore. I mean, no one made it even then at the time, let alone now. These really were like products from a bygone era. Look how skinny the tail gets. It just keeps going and going. So even then, that's why it was so impressive. Because even at the time, I recognized I haven't seen anything like this in years, and I'm not going to see anything like it in years because nobody makes this stuff anymore. Okay, how am I going to keep this organized? Let's put you there. So what's this? This is in a Best Buy bag. Okay, this is another alligator, but it's a different alligator. I'm just curious to see if there's dates or anything on here. Boy, this is sticky. I need to wash my hands. I can't make it out. There's something there, but I can't make it out. Look how slimy that is. Look at that. That's the underside. Look how glistening and slimy it is. So this is not the same as the one we saw before. This is a different alligator. He's kind of fat. Well, he's flat. He's wide. He's thick. He's a thick alligator. The other one was kind of skinny. It's really hard to get a good shot that really does justice to these things. They're so tactile. You just have to hold one in your hand. It's almost like holding a living thing. You almost expect it to feel a pulse, or you expect it to twitch or something. So, of course, the jigglers from the vending machines, or something you'd see at Ben Franklin, they're little. Not like this. Now, something like Imperial Toys, they made all kinds of alligators and snakes and stuff, but they were smaller and much less heavy than these. And also, Imperial had a kind of almost like a corporate perfection to their sculpture. They were more mainstream. These are weird. They're crude, like that tentacled spider, or they seem almost like a taxidermy thing where they're molded off a real animal. So Imperial was very professional, mainstream, kind of homogenized in the way they sculpted stuff. It was very industrial, corporate toy sculpture, whereas there's almost like an outsider art kind of off-kilter quality to the way these are sculpted. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's very sticky and tacky. Oh boy. All right, so here's, oh, so these are, this is another Disney bag. And I may have to dump this out. Whew. Okay. I am thinking that this paper these might be the ones I got from the mail. They're mailed to me, because I wouldn't have put them in paper like this. So I bet that was done at the park. Okay, so here's a gigantic cobra. Oh, brother. Look at this thing. Look at the colors on it. Beautiful color on the top. And that's a nice classic milky white jiggler belly. Wow, that is a long jiggler. How do they even produce something like this? It's so huge, and it has to be done with one mold. You can't, I mean, it's not assembled, it's one piece. It's all one piece. Wow. So, what do I do now? Let's put this. I don't want to get these on this velvety tablecloth, because, or top this cover, because it'll get fuzz on these things. And I'm thinking, I think I'm missing some of these, because I had a red snake and I don't see it here. Maybe it's in there somewhere. I think I have more of these somewhere that I don't realize. Okay, here are some little snakes. They're both the same. I mean, you do just expect them to move. They're so slimy and glistening. And I think they're identical. I think this is the same. And there's something about the curves on this one that make me think this might have been molded from a real snake. Just hearing from that story that the founder started the company by making a mold of a real lizard, I suspect all of these are, well, not all of them, but I suspect many of these have that kind of an origin. So here is, I guess, kind of an iguana. And that one, I don't know. I mean, it could be molded off a real one, but this looks more fanciful to me. But I don't know. I mean, I'll say that, and then again, I'm not sure. Maybe it is molded off a real animal. I don't know. Yeah, wash my hands. Yeah, so the folds under its head look kind of realistic. So I think this was molded off a real animal. This is 1958 Bix Novelty. 1958. Yeah, this was molded off of maybe this is the one that that article's referring to. Okay, here is another one of those spiders, but this is one that came direct from the park. And it's a little more glistening. Wow. So that's the one that came direct from the park, not eBay. You can see it's much shinier. What a crazy thing. I mean, it's creepy. Just the fact that it's not realistic makes it creepier. It's more like a spider from a nightmare instead of a real natural spider. It's like an alien spider, like some kind of facehugger kind of a creature. So I had, I'm sure, like a red or a yellow kind of a snake. I don't see that here. Huh. So I might have more than I think I do somewhere else. But I do remember one that was kind of like a red or a gold or something like that. It was a light color. So the spider is 1977. It's odd that dates on these. It's like they added a new jiggler like 1 or 2 a decade or something. I don't know. It's not that they didn't produce like 20 different ones all at once. Here's our selection of jigglers. It's like every 5 to 10 years, they'd say, okay, let's make another jiggler. It's time to make another jiggler. Okay, so and it's rubbing, there's like oily spots on this paper. Okay, so here are some contemporary jigglers from Disneyland. Let's see what we have in here. So these were sent to me by Andy Williams and his family during one of their vacations at Disneyland. It was a Disney World in this one. Disneyland or Disney World, which Disney World. This is from Disney World. And I don't know if the Vicks, oh yeah, well, I never saw the Vicks toys at Disney World, but obviously from that LA Times article, they did sell them there at Disney World. And I don't know what kind of souvenir stands they had at Disney World where they would have sold them. So this is, okay, so it's a big cobra, and on camera it might seem like, you know, just as good or as that other one we saw, but it's It's not as oily. It is flexible, but you can just tell it's more of a PVC kind of material. It's more realistic. So let's just take a closer look here. So you can see it's got a more modern Disney World tag on it, which the Vicks ones did not have. So it looks more contemporary. It's got great color, that's for sure. But the texture of it and everything is more realistic. And that's cool, but I kind of like the weird, crude earlier versions. Now let's see, did Vicks make this? Can we find a maker's mark on this? Made in China. It's not made in the USA, and it's not made in Hong Kong, it's made in China. Is there a company name, though? I mean, it's a great toy. It's a great toy. There's a number, but not a company name. It's made in China. Let's see if the tag has anything. No, it's just Disney information. Disney parks. I think it says distributed by Disney Theme Park Enterprises, something like that. It's hard to read, it's very tiny type. So I think this is produced by Disney. As I was saying in the last video, when you go to the parks now, all the merchandise is either made by Disney or it's made under license through Disney. So, but back in the day, they were ordering skulls and plaster souvenirs from Randotti, and they were ordering rubber critters from Vicks. So you had these outside companies producing stuff that was not exactly Disney themed. It wasn't Mickey Mouse. It wasn't from a movie or anything. And you could find that kind of stuff at the souvenir stands in the parks. But now it's all, well, it's almost all of it is themed specifically for some kind of Disney IP. But even if it's not, it's made by Disney. And this appears to be made by Disney, according to this tag. Well, this is distributed by, but the only company information on it is Disney. So let's see what this is. Another little Disney World bag. We have a little shark. Squeaks. And here is a spider. A much more realistic spider. Now this isn't jiggly. This is more like a PVC. I mean, it's flexible, yes, but it's not an oily jiggler. It's more the feel is more plastic. And that is from Disney World. And yeah, I mean, that looks more like an actual spider. But it's not slimy, it's not sticky. It has a Disney, is that a sticker? Yeah, it's a Disney World price sticker in it. So it's cool. It's very cool. And it's not exactly like the kind of PVC spiders you might find at I don't know, like Spirit Halloween or someplace like that might sell them. It's a little different. It is unique to the park. I don't know that it's, I can't say for sure that you can't find this exact spider anywhere else, but I suspect just from the way Disney operates that they probably want something like this to be unique to their park. So you can't just go anywhere and find the same spider for sale. But it's a nice PVC spider. And it represents, at least from, I don't know about today, but from a few years ago, from recent years, it represents the kinds of jigglers that you find now at the parks. And they're still cool. That cobra is cool. The spider's cool. Even the squeaky shark is cool. It's all cool. It's not the same as those old. It's not the same as that. It's not the same as the old jigglers. So Disneyland was this, and they had other things besides. I don't have one of each jiggler. As I said, they had some, like a red snake. I remember it was red, like red rubber, or it was red, or maybe it was painted red, but it was red. And they had some other interesting things in the jigglers that I don't have. I thought I had it, but I don't see it. So there were some other jigglers that they sold. I don't have one of each variety, but it was interesting that you could go to this particular stand and you would see, at one time you would have seen genuine Randotti skulls on the shelves and also Vic's jigglers in those barrels. And apparently those barrels were there for years and years. Maybe decades, I don't know. The jigglers inside weren't that old, but that setup with those barrels apparently dates back quite a ways. So you could have found the genuine Randotti skulls and those jigglers at one time. By the time I got to it, the Randotti skulls had been replaced by knockoffs, either made by JIP or Cal Themes or who knows who. So the genuine Randotti skulls were no longer there. There were skulls that looked like Randotti, but they weren't really made by Randotti. So I just find that very unusual and interesting that you would never expect, if you're not familiar with Disneyland and the history of Disneyland, you would not expect to go into that park and see these macabre things for sale in their souvenir stands. And just the overall macabre theme, like I was saying, that if I got the name correct, Trader Sam, maybe that's the wrong name, I don't remember, but this character that was associated with the Jungle Cruise, and it's still around, the character, but they've changed it a great deal. He was like a headhunter and a cannibal and all this dark stuff. And they had the park had this edge. It had this dark edge that was not consistent with what we think of when we think of Mickey Mouse and happy, family-friendly Disney. It's sort of a safe, saccharine Disney. And I think at some point someone at Disney realized that, and they've changed a lot of things and thrown out a lot of stuff. I suspect if I went there now, I'd be disappointed. I think all of the edge has been sanded away, which makes it less interesting. Unfortunately, I think today in popular culture, you can't get away with that kind of edginess. Things being there's a danger to it. That things are not okay everything is not okay. It's not safe. There's a feeling of danger that when I was a kid, that was kind of exciting. And it was all over the culture. Just like going to a carnival where the rides could fall apart, or the carnies were weird people. Going to a haunted house where they actually touched you and did weird, like the way they behaved was a little over the top. It was a lot of air of danger when I was a kid. And I think that's part of what I like about the old Disneyland. It wasn't okay. There were things in it that were not okay. And I could handle that. And I liked that. I liked the dark side. I liked the macabre. I liked this feeling that, how can I put this? It's not a safe feeling. It's not like, the right people are in charge and they know what they're doing and they're good people and everything's going to be okay. No, maybe the wrong people are in charge. Maybe they don't know what they're doing, and maybe they don't have good intentions, and maybe it's not going to be okay. There's that a tension there that if you have a spirit of adventure, it can be kind of fun up to a point. And I think that spirit of adventure, you can't have adventure without danger. You can't, there's no such thing as a safe adventure. If it's really safe, it's not an adventure. And now I think in this little corner of the world with the theme parks, I think they've been so sanitized, and I understand why, but they've been so sanitized and homogenized, and all the grit has been sanded away, and so that feeling of danger is gone, and with it, the real adventure is gone. And I suspect that once upon a time, people like Walt Disney, when they were designing this stuff and organizing this, they realized you can't have adventure without darkness. You can't have adventure without danger. You can't have adventure if everything is okay. You can't have a real adventure if there isn't the danger of harm, psychological harm, cultural harm, spiritual harm, in addition to physical harm, financial harm, all kinds of harm. If there's no harm, there's no adventure. So you just can't have 100% safety and have adventure. Adventure requires danger and to some degree, a lack of safety. And I think that's what I respond to with this stuff. There's adventure here. There's a feeling of adventure. Something's not quite right about this stuff. Or the Randotti skulls. Something's not right. Based on our current cultural context, you go into these, at the time, you went to these souvenir stands, you looked at this stuff, like, what is this stuff? What's it doing here? Why are they selling this? It wasn't quite right. Something was off. Like maybe there really was a cannibal headhunter about to creep up behind you and get you. You just, something was wrong. There was that air of, yeah, we're friendly, it's up, everything's happy and upbeat, but there's something creeping in the background that's not safe. And that I think that feeling was present in some of the nooks and crannies of that park. I think that in the darkness, there's adventure. And you can't have adventure without darkness. If there's no darkness, there's no adventure. So I think that's it. About time to go, isn't it? Well, I hope you enjoyed this 2-part look at Disneyland souvenirs. Not Mickey Mouse, not Marvel or whatever, not even Nightmare Before Christmas. No. These were weird, creepy, off-kilter souvenirs. Skulls, like rotting, decrepit skulls, and these slimy, tacky, heavy, oily, icky, mutant bugs and lizards and snakes in this tiki atmosphere. I'll leave on this because it just occurs to me. It has nothing to do with Disneyland, but it kind of does in an indirect way. I like tiki. I've never been like hardcore into tiki, but I like it. I mean, I understand there's a cultural appropriation there, and there's some things about it that are to modern eyes are not quite right. But I think you can take anything, and if you drill down enough, you'll find something objectionable about anything. I think the ground on which we stand is soaked in blood. And you can just choose to have no happiness or no joy in anything, or you can accept the context in which we live, that human history is a history of evil and misery and injustice, and there's nothing that isn't touched by that. But that's going off into a whole other realm. I'm just saying I'm not like hardcore into tiki, but I am fascinated by it. I do like it. I do like the look of it. And what I like is that there's something kind of scary about it. And there's a lot of like tiki mugs that are like zombies and skulls and weird stuff. There's something, and I understand the cultural appropriation about it, and this exotica and how the colonialism of it all. I get that. But still, that's all darkness. Everything that's objectionable about it is darkness. And there's a darkness to tiki. And I think that's why it kind of pushes a button in me. I kind of like that style, because it's not right, because there's something kind of dark about it on multiple levels. But when I was a child, I mean little, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years old, like little, there was a department store. I don't know what store it was. It might have been Kresge or Venture or something, but they had an aisle. I don't know what they were selling in this aisle, but it had something overhead, so it was kind of dark in that aisle. Like when you went down this aisle, there was something over it, which made the aisle dark. And they had decor. I don't know if it was all tiki decor or stuff to decorate like a bar or something. I don't know. I don't remember. But I just remember every time I went to the store, I'd be sitting in the shopping cart. I remember my dad being the one who would push me. I'd be sitting in the car, and I always wanted to go down this aisle. Because they're on one shelf, I think I called them the heads. There was a row of like tiki style heads. I don't know if they were shrunken heads, or I think they were tiki style heads. And I don't know what they were, if they were mugs, if they were just sculptures like decoration. I don't know what they were, but to me they were like cut off heads or something. They were weird heads, but I now understand there was some kind of tiki decor, and probably the whole aisle was some kind of tiki decor theme, and there was something over the top. Who knows? It could have been like fake wood to simulate like a tiki environment. I don't know. And in my mind, it's this 20-foot long dark corridor of horror or something. It was probably 4 feet or whatever. It's probably just some little section. But in my mind, it's much more than that. And I always got excited to go into this aisle, and he'd take me down. My dad would push me down the aisle, and then they'd come up to the heads, and they were, of course, they'd be on a shelf, and then he'd pause, and then be like, I'd be scared, like, okay, that's enough, and he'd push me on ahead. And so just thinking about tiki and the souvenir stands where they sold this, which was a tiki themed stand, it all kind of comes together how even at not long after I popped out of the womb, I've got this memory of like some dark tiki thing that was at the same time scary. It scared me, but it was also an adventure. I looked forward to going to that store, to going down that aisle and seeing the tiki heads, but not for too long. I wanted to keep going after that. And so that stand had some of that feeling. And I haven't been there in recent years. I know they've revamped everything at Disney. Now I'm talking about Disneyland again. They've revamped everything. It's all very different. So I'd be curious to go there now and see what I think. I suspect I'd be very disappointed that it's not creepy like it used to be. But I'm glad I saw it when it was still creepy. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. If you like what you see, please subscribe to this channel. I should have my animation there. Subscribe to this channel. Please subscribe to this channel. Click the bell. So hopefully you'll be notified when I upload new videos. At least that's how it's supposed to work. And also consider joining the Basement of Horror Facebook page or group. We have a Facebook group, the Basement of Horror Facebook group. There will be a link to it in the description. And it's a good place to be, lots of good people. So if you want to talk about stuff like this, you can go there, talk about it, show off your collection, look at other people's collections, find out about what's new as far as toys that are new on the market, that kind of thing. And I'll comment on stuff now and then. Not that I have anything that worthwhile to say, but I'll put in my 2 cents now and then. So consider joining the Basement of Horror Facebook group. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, Basement of Horror will return.